China economy strong. Building strong economy. Economy for China. For China. Hello everyone, this is Argent Templar, and we are continuing to document China's rise to become the strongest economy on Earth. This is China Economy Strong. So today we're going to cover probably one of the most brilliant decisions China has ever made. An act that just makes their economy work so much better, and indeed that the rest of the world needs to follow. China only has one time zone, and that is apparently a problem according to this paused publication, The Atlantic. I mean, if we look at world time zones, then China would probably cover 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, 5, 4 or 5 different time zones. But China's too strong a country for that. Instead, China has one time zone because there is only one China. Only one China mean only one time zone. Exactly. The Communist Party's decision to use Beijing time across the country done to enhance national unity has backfired in Xinjiang. Imagine you find yourself in Kashgar, the westernmost city in Xinjiang, China's most westernmost region. Your friend sends you a text message and tells you to meet him at 3 p.m. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? Not in Xinjiang. If your friend isn't of China's majority Han ethnicity, you can assume that by 3 o'clock he's referring to Beijing Standard Time. But if your friend is Uyghur, the largest ethnic minority in Xinjiang, he might be referring to local time, which is 2 hours behind. The reason for this confusion is simple. China, a country that is of roughly the same size to continental United States, has but one time zone, Beijing Standard Time. How did this happen? You see, some visionaries in the Communist Party realized that having to convert times when calling across China was just taking too much time. Because someone from the next time zone over would call and they'd be like, "Can we set up a meeting for 1 o'clock?" And they'll be like, yeah, oh, that's 12 our time. Yeah, that should be good. And that pause, that couple of seconds is stealing from China economy. That is food taken, actually the government takes food out of people's mouths. That is money that could be going into making the economy strong. You know how much those couple of seconds add up to a year? A couple pennies. And those are pennies that could be being invested in infrastructure and increasing the size of China economy. So by having every country, every part of China on the same time zone, that's avoided, and that deserves a gong. Good. So let's see here. The reason for this confusion, okay, so this means when it's 6 o'clock in the nation's capital, it's 6 o'clock almost 3,000 miles west in Kashgar. Alan Schrager, in his most widely circulated article from last week advocating that the continental U.S. Reduce its time zones from 4 to 2. That's not a terrible idea. 3 would probably be okay. I know Mountain Standard Time is kind of pointless. I'd be 3, maybe like Western, Central, Eastern. I don't know, that makes sense to me. Cited China as the example of why such change would be less problematic than people would expect. Maybe so, but the single time zone does present odd sights. In the summer, for instance, it isn't uncommon in Urumqi, Xinjiang's capital, to see people enjoying a beautiful sunset at midnight, or for the sun to rise there in the winter around 10 a.m. In order to accommodate people inconvenienced by the time zone change, shops and restaurants in Xinjiang often adjust their hours, but the effect can still be disorienting from the unaccustomed traveler. I would imagine. I'm against daylight savings time. I think it's a horrible idea. I just don't like playing around with this stuff. China hasn't already had one time zone. In 1912, the year after its collapse of the Qing dynasty, Qing Dynasty, sorry, the newly empowered Republic of China, evil Republic of China, sell out Beijing to Western nations, keep dividing China on Taiwan. But in 1949, the Communist Party consolidated control of the country. Chairman Mao Zedong decreed that all of China would henceforth be on Beijing time for the purposes of national unity. Given the state of the nation in those days, Mao's reasoning was legitimate. No, it really wasn't. Just 2 decades before, China was a fragmented country, with large swaths of the country beyond the de facto control of the central government. This decision was hardly unprecedented. Newly independent India, for example, had instituted a policy 2 years previously. Yeah, but India is much smaller. If we look at the map, it kind of makes sense for India. There's not really a convenient place to draw it. India is also like about a third. They could probably give Eastern India its own time zone. India kind of makes sense, like more sense than China. Let's see here. Among Han Chinese, Justin Jacobs, a Xinjiang expert at American University, told me use of Beijing time is universal. But there's another clock is not even something the Han think about. But much of the Uyghur population prefer to use their own time. In Ermequi, Beijing Standard Time suffices. But as you head further west into areas further from Beijing with a higher concentration of Uyghurs, knowing which time to use becomes trickier. In Xinjiang's extreme west near China's border with Pakistan, Beijing Standard Time is so relevant it's not even used on bus timetables. Why does this discrepancy exist? For the Uyghur population, using their own time is more than just restoring the clock to a more natural equilibrium. It's also about politics, as hope for a greater economy within China has faded. Due to a combination of government suppression and Han migration, Uyghurs consider this, in the words of the writer Ruth Ingram, a psychological tool for independence. Okay, none of this is really that interesting. Let's see here. Since gaining control of China in 1949, the party has attempted to smooth out the country's vast regional distances. Sorry, must have eaten something wrong. By using policies to affirm, occasionally by force, national unity. But treating a vast, complex region like Xinjiang as just another Chinese province, Beijing has prevented the population from forging a trans-ethnic identity. These people don't get it. China is an ethnic state. They don't give a shit. One based around Xinjiang's unique geography, distance from Beijing. Whatever China decide to do with its time zones may ultimately matter little to the country's political or economic situations. Okay, so this guy really doesn't get it, but that's okay. All I know is this is a brilliant idea and we should implement it here in Canada, and Russia should do this as well. What could go wrong? Anyways, as always, this is Argent Templar. I will sing you out. This is China moment, China moment. This is China's moment to shine.